Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a case that's both captivating and heartbreaking. The Delhi lawyer husband murder.
It's a story that really highlights how looks can be deceiving.
It really does. A successful lawyer, Rajat Sharma, is found murdered in his own home.
And as the investigation unfolds, it reveals a web of secrets and lies within what seemed like a picture-perfect marriage.
Yeah, those perfect marriages rarely are what they seem, right?
Right on the surface, you have this power couple, Rajat, a top criminal defense lawyer,
Hmm.
and his wife, Anita, a prominent socialite,
Oh,
an
wow.
entrepreneur. They seem to have it all: wealth, success, a loving family.
The perfect life.
But as we dig deeper, we'll uncover a much darker reality.
Well, I am ready to get started. Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love series. This case grabbed our attention immediately. I think what makes it so compelling is that human element,
Yes.
Here's a man who dedicated his life to upholding the law, and he's found murdered in his sanctuary, his home.
Absolutely.
It's a violation that just strikes at our core sense of security.
For sure. And what makes this case even more fascinating is that the investigation immediately zeroed in on those closest to Rajat.
Really?
This wasn't some random act of violence,
Well, no.
but rather a calculated crime committed by someone who knew him intimately.
That's chilling. So let's rewind back to the beginning. It was August 5th, 2018, when Rajat Sharma was found in his study.
Yeah.
He had been stabbed multiple times, a truly brutal and personal attack.
The scene initially pointed to a possible robbery, but there were these little things that just didn't quite fit.
Like what?
Well, for starters, there was no sign of forced entry, and valuable items were left untouched. It just pointed to a different scenario. Someone who was familiar with the house and had access to Rajat.
Someone he trusted.
Exactly.
That sends chills down my spine.
Yeah.
And that's when suspicion turned towards his wife, Anita.
Right.
Now picture this. You're an investigator walking into this scene.
Mm-hmm.
You see this successful woman grieving the loss of her husband, but something feels off.
I can see that. The investigators noticed these inconsistencies in Anita's story.
Such as?
She claimed she'd been asleep in another room and hadn't heard anything.
Okay.
But as they dug deeper, cracks started to show in her narrative.
It's like that saying, right? The devil's in the details.
Yeah.
It's often those seemingly insignificant discrepancies that can unravel a carefully constructed facade.
Absolutely. And in this case, those inconsistencies, combined with the absence of any other likely suspects, made Anita the prime focus of the investigation.
It makes you wonder what she was hiding. And then there's the forensic evidence. While the murder weapon was never recovered, traces of Anita's DNA were found on Rajat's clothing.
That was a huge turning point in the case. Forensic evidence, especially DNA, can be like that silent witness.
I see.
It provides undeniable proof linking a suspect to the scene. And in this instance, it placed Anita very close to Rajat at a crucial time.
Like a puzzle piece snapping into place. It starts to paint a clearer picture, but there's another layer to the story, one that adds even more complexity and intrigue: the money.
Oh yes, the financial aspect. The investigation uncovered some concerning financial irregularities in Rajat and Anita's joint accounts.
Oh, no.
It turned out Anita had been secretly siphoning money to support her struggling businesses.
So not only do we have a wife with a shaky alibi and forensic evidence tying her to the scene, but now we uncover a potential motive driven by financial deception.
Exactly.
It seems their seemingly perfect life was built on a foundation of secrets and lies.
And as we'll see, those secrets had devastating consequences. The discovery of Anita's financial infidelity created a huge rift in their marriage, adding fuel to an already tense situation.
This is getting really complicated.
Oh, it is.
And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of the deep dive.
We will.
We'll untangle the complexities of their relationship, dive deeper into the motives behind the crime, and unveil a shocking truth that will completely change the course of the investigation forever.
So as we dig deeper into Raja and Anita's relationship, you start to see this pattern of deception and manipulation emerging.
It's like that age-old saying, right? You never truly know what goes on behind closed doors.
Exactly. And in this case, those closed doors were hiding this really toxic mix of financial infidelity, simmering resentments,
Wow.
and just this desperate attempt to maintain this image of perfection.
We left off talking about Anita's financial misdeeds. I'm just curious, did Rajat ever confront her about the missing money?
According to sources close to the investigation, it seems like Raja had started to suspect something wasn't right with their finances.
Really?
He was known for his sharp mind, both in the courtroom and in his personal life. I mean, it's highly likely he would have noticed those discrepancies and started asking questions.
So imagine the pressure building on Anita. She's trying to keep her businesses afloat. all while fearing that her carefully constructed world is about to come crashing down.
Absolutely. And that's where the story takes this even darker turn. Enter Vikram Malhotra,
Yep.
Anita's alleged business associate, and, as rumors suggested, her lover.
Oh, wow. The classic love triangle. It sounds like something straight out of a movie script. But in this case, the stakes were tragically real.
The introduction of Vikram into this already strained marriage added this whole other volatile element to the mix.
I say.
You see this pattern a lot in these types of cases. A third party comes in, amplifies the existing tensions, and sometimes it just pushes people to the brink.
It's fascinating how the dynamics of a relationship can change so dramatically when another person is involved. It's like this sense of urgency, this desperation that might not have been there before.
Exactly. And in this case, investigators believed that Vikram's presence and the potential exposure of Anita's affair might have pushed her to take drastic measures to protect her secrets.
Secrets have a way of multiplying, don't they? One lie leads to another, and before you know it, you're caught in a web of your own making.
It's a slippery slope. And it appears that Anita was willing to do whatever it took to maintain her carefully constructed facade.
It's hard to believe.
But as the investigation intensified, the walls began to close in on her.
So what happened?
Well, under immense pressure from the mounting evidence and the relentless questioning by the police, Anita finally broke.
She confessed.
She confessed. She admitted to orchestrating Rajat's murder with Vikram as her accomplice.
Wow. I can't even imagine the emotion she must have been feeling at that moment. The weight of her actions, the realization that her carefully crafted world had completely fallen apart.
Confessions are complex, you know? They can be a release, a way to unburden oneself from guilt, but they can also be calculated a way to control the narrative and maybe even try to minimize the consequences.
It seems like in Anita's case, it was a mix of both. She confessed to the crime, but then tried to portray herself as a victim,
Right.
claiming that Rajat's controlling behavior and their financial problems drove her to act out of desperation.
It was a desperate attempt to shift the blame to make people sympathize with her, but the evidence combined with the sheer brutality of the crime painted a much different picture.
What do you mean?
It painted a picture of a woman driven by greed, ambition, and a desire to escape the consequences of her actions.
So we have a confession, a motive, and a web of circumstantial evidence, all pointing towards Anita and Vikram. What happens next? How does this all play out in court?
That's where the real drama unfolds. The trial was a media sensation, every development eagerly followed by the public. The courtroom was packed with journalists and spectators, all captivated by this story of betrayal and murder.
We left off with Anita's confession and the upcoming trial, and, I would say I'm really curious to see how this all plays out in court. I mean, the prosecution seems to have a pretty solid case against her and Vikram.
Oh, they did. The evidence was substantial. You had the forensic evidence placing Anita at the scene, the financial records detailing her deception, and of course her own confession. The prosecution, they were set on presenting this clear and compelling narrative, leaving no room for doubt in the minds of the jury.
But what about the defense? What was their strategy? Did they have any way to counter those claims?
Oh, absolutely. The defense team, they were very skilled, and they knew they had a tough challenge ahead of them. Their strategy focused on painting Anita as a victim of circumstance. Someone driven to desperate measures by a controlling husband and, a failing business.
So they were trying to shift the blame, basically, and make her out to be someone trapped in a situation with no other way out.
Exactly.
Right.
They wanted the jury to see Anita not as a cold-blooded killer, but as a woman pushed to the edge by a difficult marriage and those mounting financial pressures. They called upon witnesses to testify about Rajat's alleged controlling behavior and presented evidence of their troubled relationship.
So it's that classic defense tactic, right? Appeal to the jury's empathy. Make them see her side of the story.
Exactly. And remember, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. The defense just needed to create reasonable doubt in the jurors' minds to potentially secure an acquittal.
That makes sense. So tell me, how did the trial actually unfold? Was the defense successful in swaying the jury?
The trial, it was a media frenzy. Every twist and turn was followed by the public. The courtroom was packed with journalists and spectators, everyone captivated by this unfolding drama. Both sides, they presented their arguments with passion. They called upon witnesses and experts to support their claims.
It must have been so intense for Anita and Vikram, and for Rajat's family too, having to relive this tragedy in such a public way.
Absolutely. It was an emotional roller coaster for everyone. The prosecution, they meticulously laid out their evidence, highlighting Anita's inconsistencies, her motive, the forensic evidence connecting her to the crime. And the defense, they fought hard trying to present a different perspective, emphasizing the complexities of their marriage and Anita's state of mind.
So in the end, it all came down to the jury's interpretation of the evidence and their perception of Anita and Vikram. What was the verdict?
After days of deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous decision. They found both Anita and Vikram guilty of murder and conspiracy.
Wow, guilty on all counts. It seems justice was served for Raja, but I can only imagine the pain and devastation felt by both families. A life lost and two others forever changed by this.
It really underscores the devastating consequences of deceit and desperation. This case, it had everything: love, betrayal, financial ruin, and ultimately murder. It peeled back the layers of this seemingly perfect life, revealing the fragility of trust and how destructive secrets can be.
It leaves us with so many questions. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Were there warning signs that people missed? What can we learn from this case to protect ourselves and our loved ones from falling victim to something like this?
These are questions we all need to consider. This case serves as a powerful reminder to be vigilant, to cherish open communication in our relationships, and to be wary of those who prioritize personal gain over the well-being of others.
This deep dive into the Delhi lawyer husband murder has been a real journey into the depths of human nature. It's a story that I know will stay with me. It reminds us that beneath the surface of every life there are stories waiting to be told, secrets yearning to be revealed.
It's a case that challenges us to look beyond what we see on the surface, to question our assumptions, and to remember that truth, no matter how painful, will always come to light.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into this captivating case.
And don't forget to follow CrimePod Castle and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more deep dives into the world of true crime. We'll be back next week with another chilling tale that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and as always, stay vigilant.